Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
My name is Bob Eickhoff. I've been in grocery retail since August 28th, 1986.
Okay, so I'm wondering today, I have a couple questions over price, supply, and demand. First of all, just a generic question for you. How are prices normally set in the grocery retail setting?
Um, I'm not a single store owner. I've never worked in that capacity. So, um, franchisees, Roundy's was one of them, and Piggly Wiggly as of now. So generally, a lot of those, for a franchise fee, you get kind of the services of a big, single owned entity. So the pricing department and the buyers at Piggly Wiggly Midwest are in charge of setting the prices.
Okay,
And then ads are sold through that too to determine, when they want to put a weekly flyer out and what the pricing should be on those. They
okay.
they work with the manufacturer based on that. They buy ads and give discounted cost of goods, and the pricing is determined at that level.
When it comes to customers influencing the price of things, how does that normally work for you and how you manage your store? Does a customer get an input and what would that look like?
Not to my knowledge, as far as that goes. It's generally the manufacturer that's the one that gets the input
Okay.
on the prices. They purchase, it depends on how the company's set up. I know they set up different ways. Manufacturers will buy ad space in a flyer that's sent to the home or digital advertising, and then they'll support that with an allowance off of their normal case price.
Okay.
So,
And then another part is, and I mean, you mentioned this promotions and discounts. What does that normally look like for you?
clarify that more, please.
Just like what kind of, if you're going to do a promotion or a discounted sale, how do you reach out to the public and let them know about it? And what does that look like?
Oh, well, I mean, we do have some influence, I'm gonna walk back a little bit over the ad. We can make adjustments to the main ads that are sent out. Um, and there's costs involved in that. So we can influence what we want to promote sometimes in that regard. How we deliver it, a lot of it's done digitally. A lot of it's, we'll do announcements on Facebook, things like that. We'll take care of that. We do have a person that works for Fox Brothers, which is the entity I work for. The franchisees of Piggly Wiggly for 11 stores that they'll do that through social media. They'll do it through channels of obviously traditional ads sent to the consumer's home. So there's different avenues. They'll do TV, billboards, all those things are at play.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
When it comes to inflation, how does that really impacted how our or your store, I should say, manages prices, and what are some things you take in consideration when trying to balance how that all works?
That's a good question. I mean, I think you try and deliver the lowest cost of goods you can to your consumer, hopefully at all times. So sometimes you get sales where you can buy in deeper on items. You can feature them maybe a little bit more often if you have to, like an in-store type special, to keep costs low and extend sales. Sometimes we do deeper buy-ins on things
What
like
does a
that.
deeper
So you buy more than you have to if the item is not that sensitive as far as if you see that the cost of something is going up and you get wind on it and you're buying if it's meat, if it's frozen, it's got a longer staying power because you're going to thaw it out and sell it. So you can buy in deeper that way and you can keep the cost lower for the consumer.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And when it comes to trying, and I know that we're kind of more in a rural part than an urban part, but I believe you've had some urban experience. How does that change pricing depending on the stores, and how do you figure out what that pricing would look like if depending on if you were in a rural store compared to an urban store?
Pricing changes. I mean, it depends on the ad mix of what you're selling or the items you're selling, because definitely they're different between the two, right? So, but I think most grocers that I know of now, I know in a lot of in the summer you're keeping your produce and things local from the farmers and things like that. You can discount back that way. The farmer's actually dropping it off at your back door sometimes in some cases. With us, it's corn, it's pumpkins, it's potatoes, squash. The farmer's actually pulling up and dropping the stuff off. So I think you get a better cost of goods that way. You support local and you can sell that way too. So I mean I guess one of the ways you can influence that a little bit. So.
Is that one of the reasons why urban cost is normally more expensive than rural, just because of shipping, like having to get it there because there's not many farms in the urban environment compared to the rural environment?
I don't know because I think it depends. I can't speak to that too much because of the farmers we deal with, where this store is located. At least I can speak to, or Hubertus, where I was before that. I mean, those are guys that are kind of right in their back doors. Their farms are well known. We used to do it with apples too in the fall. So Peepers was one of the companies we used, but they were right with us. I don't know, speak to where they're pulling product for, the Piggly Wigglies there's a few in the city of Milwaukee, just, that I can think of that I don't, that those are corporately owned stores. I don't know if they source from local farmers, maybe. Ingersoll was one that Pick and Save would use. He was right outside Racine and Kenosha, so that was fairly local, and they would use him for their corn in the summer. But that was years ago. I don't know if that market's changed from my experience. So,
When it comes to supply, especially with the current environment, how does supply chain logistics work specifically for your store? Like, if you're running low on something, how does that work?
every department um, orders their own supplies for deli, bakery, meat department. We've got a designated uh, person for our grocery department here that does that. We use a couple different vendors. We cost against each other, to source the lowest cost we can, obviously. So, Imperial Date is one, and they're a big nationwide company, I believe. And then there's Professional Supply, which is a local company. So we just kind of cost between the two, and we kind of compare constantly to try and source the best cost of goods we can. We want to be efficient. We never want to have too much supplies because it's just money that we consider sitting in the back room. If you over order something and you're going to sit on it for months, it's better for the company to have, money not tied up in those kind of things. So
Hmm.
we try to order just our needs as we need them every week. And, that's what we do.
Does that ever lead to shortages where all of a sudden something gets bulk bought and now you're running out? And how does the logistics for that look like?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we always have other avenues. Like I said, if something Imperial Day that runs out, that we can get it through professional supplier. We have other options to do those type of things. So, I mean, one of the interesting things that I always thought about supplies was just the demand of plastic bags because
Mm.
they're petroleum based. So when the oil prices go up, the cost of your bags go up. So
I think that's something that not a lot of people realize specifically, and that affects the thickness of the bags as well, correct?
we can specify how thick we want them. So it depends on
Okay.
the manufacturer, the retailer, I guess, because you come across all different kinds of thicknesses in this business, from your competitors or even anybody that uses a plastic bag. So that I always found is interesting that how that can cut into your profit margins.
Hmm.
So
And then when it comes to just having seasonal availability and getting seasonal items in on time and just in time for the holidays, what does that normally look like and what avenues do you go through for that?
I mean, they've done it enough through Piggly Wiggly Midwest that when we order, we're ordering far enough out. Christmas candy is usually ordered probably in May. You're ordering
Wow.
for that. Yeah, it's that far out. So for that, those are things you're doing right now. They're putting in the Valentine's floral order is due this Wednesday. So, and today's the 1st of December. So that's 2 months out for the growers for flowers. Um,
Which comparison to candy isn't that bad.
no, yeah, candy's way out there. So yeah, Christmas ordered a long time ago. Halloween is probably going to be ordered in the next month or two
Okay.
for next year. So
Wow.
it just kind of, I think it lets them know how much to produce, and that's the biggest thing, right? So a lot of times, a lot of products for ads are ordered that way. They're 6 weeks out because then they know how much to bring to the warehouse, how much we're going to carry. And I know it's a little bit off topic, but because we're talking seasonal, but that's kind of the general flow of things.
And I know this is more of a demand question, but when you're ordering that far out for seasonal items, how can you determine like how much demand there's going to be for those items? Do you go off of
Yep.
past information and projections
Yeah,
or
we try to recap every holiday. As far as get it in words for every department, I think it's useful for them the next time it comes up to ordering, and also we run a lot of movements off of through the pricing system here. The scanning system has the ability to track movement, how many units you sell. You can put in as a database, you can pull how much in certain time frames. So that helps too. Like usually, when we get to Fat Tuesday and we're ordering punchkis, which is here. And big thing here, at least in Wisconsin, that is exponentially helps us a ton, knowing how much we moved. The big thing you have to keep track of is if you ran out or not.
Hmm.
So,
And continuing on with just one more question in supply, how much of your stock, I guess I should say, is local compared to a non-local? I'm not sure exactly what term that would be, but the idea of buying from closer farmers or producers and vendors compared to shipping from either like out of state or even out
yeah.
of country. What does that look like?
I mean, it's interesting. We try to keep everything fresh wise on the produce side as local as we can in the summer. Um, but it starts with the growing seasons down south because they warm up before here. So we're looking into, the end of June before we might, or even July before you see Wisconsin corn come through.
Hmm.
So we start in Georgia and work our way back up, that way. So Georgia, Indiana to Wisconsin. So, but I mean, we try to where we can. We have some even local very local Beaver Dam people. We have somebody that does honey. We sell their honey on the shelf here. They came and saw me last year. We took them on. We have a candle. We sell some candles that are at the registers that is from somebody that's local here too as well. So if there's a one-off vendor that has something, we try to support them as well in the community.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then kind of pivoting back to demand again, how do you determine like customer buying habits or what specifically about them has kind of surprised you in a way?
I don't know if it's surprising you have. I think it depends on all the different stores I've been in. I probably worked in 15 to 20 different stores. um, just how you learn the regionality of it. It could be just neighborhood even. I spent a bunch of my career in Milwaukee, on the south side of Milwaukee, the north side of Milwaukee, and there are different things you need to have for different holidays, and it's interesting. So to me, it's always been fascinating. But usually you ask a lot of questions when you get into an environment if you haven't been working at that store for a long period of time or whatever, because you got to, yeah, there's certain things that do sell better than others. So just once again, it's always usually good notes. You know.
For the demand side of things, do you normally look around at the communities or environment around you, seeing like if there's different ethical groups around you or
Sure, that plays into it. Yeah, the north side of Milwaukee is a lot different than the south side of Milwaukee. I can tell you there's certain items that just won't sell on, one area, and there's certain items that do really well in others. And so much so that, I mean, um, they've had to write entire promotional materials around, you can't run a one ad size fits all in Milwaukee because of the diversity in the city.
wow.
So, yeah, the
How
way you
can
merchandise your end displays is completely different in the inner city in the north side of Milwaukee than it is on the south side of Milwaukee or the west side of Milwaukee, east side.
you said you did your research before like advertising or setting up merchandise. What does that research look like for trying to figure out what products are going to be demanded?
I think you just have to look at what sells, what doesn't sell. I don't think you're gonna, it's just the regionality of it. I think as far as, I can tell you that, any a sweet based beverage will sell on the north side of Milwaukee versus if you put an end cap on the south side, you want, like Kool-Aid is big there. It doesn't sell anywhere else.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to see.
Okay, interesting.
And I mean, there's more examples. I've just been away from that market for a while that don't have them popping right up in my head right away anymore. But
And then when it comes to like just seasonal demand shifts, how do you prepare? Like you said, you order very far out, but if
mhm.
you get kind of closer to that date and all of a sudden, I mean, there's either just a lot of people replying or tagging to your social media that you said you put out, or you are looking at gross trends and you're seeing that the prices or demand is starting to go up. How does that look like? Like, what do you try to do? Do you try to ship in more products, raise the prices on the ones that are currently there? What does that look like
No,
for
I
you?
mean, I don't think so. I think like if you take in, for example, like this part of the year we're in, November and December, I think, we have, I don't know what it is, probably 32 feet of display space in the first aisle here at this store, at this location. So, you know, it gets to be a busy time of the year in this industry, right? It's a lot, you get a lot of business packed in small space, but you get demand, like the demand for baking will go up now. Right now, since December 1st, people are going to start to bake. But, 2 weeks ago, the demand for a turkey dinner and anything involved with it starts going up. So, the last thing you want to be doing is making big displays items and changing that over every week. So we took out of that 32 feet, we left 8 feet to support the current ad, and then we took the rest of that 24 right now, and that has become um, holiday staple type items. So we've loaded it in there in essence and made another back room with it, kind of in a way. So we've got our kind of our back room on the shelf is our thinking, right? So we've got turkey broth, which becomes in high demand. You put stuffing out there because that's what people are buying, and all those type of items, and cranberry sauce and um, stuff like that. So we put that all in those shelves and we load it up, and then we're working that to the shelf constantly throughout the day to support demand and to stay in stock. So the items are there. And then we have some overflow into the back room. But that's kind of the biggest shift we make to just the biggest thing is keeping your customers happy, keeping what they want on the shelf at the time. And a lot of those items we just, there's a promotions they call barges where they want you to make standalone displays. Put all the holiday baking needs right there. Put all your, you know, stuff for Thanksgiving, do the promotional barge that way. I already know through experience they're going to do this. So that's what we did.
So
We set up for the key items to have extra space. They don't have to be sitting in a back room. So there's 2 points between the regular shelf spot and the display where people actually, your customers are in your store on the floor that they can find these items. So it's easier for them too. Plus, if you place it before its natural spot, you take the pressure off the spot from running out.
hmm, that makes sense.
Yep. So it's
And,
strategic and logistical too.
and then
I
do
hope that
you?
answers your question.
Oh, completely.
Okay.
And then just kind of tying everything together. Do you have any examples like from the store floor of like let's say when like supply is low, let's say for instance like eggs or milk are like kind of running out of stock. Do we raise or do you raise the price on those or what does that look like until you can get more stock in?
No, never. None of it's ever done at store level. And I think if demand gets tight nationwide, you might see obviously like what happened with an avian flu, where it wipes out a lot of the population of birds. Yeah, they're gonna, they go up exponentially everywhere, right? So, um, I don't think that. Yeah, I'd never support that theory, and we've never done it. Um, I just, there's a lot of big retail out there that has a lot of leverage that gets cheaper costs than a company like us can do globally, like a Walmart. So you're always competing with them, and so I don't know. For me, I mean, no, I've never seen anything like that where just in a store sense, that I can speak to, at least for Fox Brothers, we've never raised a price like that.
But what would it change somewhere in that line if the supply started running low?
Well, if the costs go up, we're gonna keep our margins and adjust with the cost, or we'll hold a little bit more off. Traditionally, stores' profit margins are actually slightly less than they were pre-COVID, and everybody thinks that's, in my opinion. I mean, this is my opinion, right? And what I see, but I mean, I don't set the pricing, but I certainly do inventories, and I know what cost and retails are, and what the margins of some of those margins are. They're about the same as they've been. It's the cost of everything that goes up, right? You start raising wages, and then my opinion is that then every piece that goes into making that product you're buying, whether it's the packaging on it, the refinement of the product itself, and the trucking, all that every person involved in that got something probably, and it's all cost adjusted in the end. So it wouldn't be a good business strategy to sit there and keep the margins, you know, lose money on a product. You're always going to make a profit. That's what we're in the business for.
Hmm.
But I think the margins are the same.
Interesting. And do you have any like examples of like all of a sudden a product just having like massive like demand on a product out of nowhere, either like due to a snowstorm or something like that? I know we get a lot of those this time of year. Do you have any like personal examples of that or stories of
Uh,
that happening?
I mean, we just had a snowstorm days ago, right? Usually what goes up is, I mean, you got to watch watch your your weather. I'm sorry, your weather forecasts. You've got to watch current trends and things like that. That's always going to be relevant in the business. So you want to head it off at the pass. Is what you want to do. You just want to make smart decisions ahead of time. So whether that be, you buy a pallet of road salt ahead of time and anticipate that that's going to be a demand item, and um, it gets a little logistically tough. You're ordering milk 5 days out. So you start hearing about a storm that's coming 4 days in, you can't do much, you know? So all you can anticipate is maybe that you're going to need a lot more milk, and the next day you can get your order. Sometimes manufacturers you can call and they will up it. If they can, they'll do that for you. So maybe you can still, raise your order that you put in for milk or eggs that were, 3 days out for eggs or 5 days out for milk, from the supplier. So I think you just have to do diligence on this stuff and try and head it off at the pass and take in as much information as you can. How big is the storm? How much are we expecting? Because you will get people that come in and shop. I mean, it could spike your business. We saw, upticks of, I think it was 83% from this last snowstorm.
Wow.
How do you plan for that from the year before? You don't. I mean, it's hard, right? You can adjust and try and get more workers in so you can cashier out people more. But then you have to adjust on the back end too when it's not very busy, when everybody's digging out of a snowstorm the next day for labor because, you plan on doing X amount of sales and you're not going to do it. So you just reallocate where you can. So you have to pivot a lot.
Is there, do you have any examples of, for instance, like you had a certain stock of a certain stock of like a product, and then it just didn't sell and you weren't able to get rid of it, and how did you eventually get rid of it? What does that look like for
Yeah,
you?
it depends. There's seasonal stuff that you don't. You always have little stragglers left. So, I mean, generally our policy is we mark it down 50% the week after like Halloween, let's say. We have some Halloween merchandise right now. So you mark it down 50%, you try and sell it out, put it in a visible spot the next week after it. Our policy is we go to 75. And then whatever doesn't sell, we donate it to, a local um like Goodwill or something like that or
What
Salvation Army.
So nothing gets wasted, everything gets donated if it can't
Donate it.
sell.
Yep, that's what we try to do. Yeah.
I really like that.
Yep.
Um, and just a final question here. How does community events shape your supply and demand here and price too? Like with Packer games, for instance, is there certain stuff that gets raised in price or certain
No,
supplies that you increase to prepare for it, or do you run like a special sale kind of thing?
not so much. I think it's more we merchandise towards it, right? So it's stronger when the season kicks off, but we try to have merchandise in the store. That's might be some Packer. I think right this year we had like keychains and shot glasses and Packer themed decks of cards, or in Wisconsin Badger stuff too. So it's planning for that. So then we'll make 6-pack cupcakes so people, if they're going tailgating, they can grab those, take them with them. We have large cookies we do, but we'll just theme our displays up front kind of around that, right? Brats for tailgating, for brewer games, things like that. So we just tie those in with the events. And it depends regionally. We're very close to Madison. You see a lot of people that go to Badger games here, so football games especially. Um, and you get people passing through kind of the state. It's the Packers are a whole state team, so too you get that as well. So you'd see a lot more of it. Like I worked for years at the Miller Parkway pick and save. So that was another experience because literally what is it, a mile down the road? There's
Mm-hmm.
Miller Park. So lots of traffic, and that's all marketing. We do pallets of beer just out before, we'd put displays outside of charcoal before, the first home game and things like that. So that was, just that severely impacted business. So, but the other part of it too is, if it's a big event like Super Bowl, nobody's going to be in shopping. So you sell to that event and then you adjust afterwards. So it's the ebb and flow of the business we're in.
Okay. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain a bit on price, supply, and demand to me. Now I have some very like specific questions towards each of those categories. My first question is regarding price. How do you like set your price, especially in the grocery market?
That's all predetermined. It's done by Piggly Wiggly Midwest. So,
Okay.
yep, that's the margins. I think they have 3 different zones or 4 different zones that you can choose to be in. So the store's in the cheapest zone they offer. Um, but it's up to the individual owners because it's a franchise. The company's a franchisee owned kind of a run company. So um, it's up to those. That gives them options, I guess, if they want to make a higher percentage profit in their stores, they have the option to do so by choosing one of those zones.
And I kind of touched on, or you touched on this earlier, but I'm curious to find out a little bit more specifically on like how inflation specifically has impacted a lot of things or like products at the store. Do you have any specific examples?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's specific. I mean, I don't know. I look at it. I mean, inflation, I think you try to do what you can to hold your costs and keep your costs down. So, I think I guess I look at that. Maybe it's not what you were looking for an answer, but I mean, I think, you know, the store itself needs to manage how it does things at the highest degree possible, right? So it's when you're slow, you send workers home. It keeps the cost of goods down. You have your lights on timers that turn off and save energy at night. And it's just taking every precaution you can in that way. I think to try and because inflation impacts everybody. So I think as a whole, we're an employee-owned company, so I look at the fiscal responsibility of that too as well. You know,
Hmm.
I guess I don't know if that answered your
Yeah.
question.
Um, what are some specific events that would disrupt either your pricing or your supply or demand of things from like and if you have any examples that go along with them? Like just a couple, like either like natural disaster, natural, or I guess not
Yeah, I mean,
disaster, but like
it's pretty evident with um, a lot of things with the growing cultures. What happened around produce is a good example because you'll have whole crops of strawberries that can be wiped out. You get a freeze in Florida on citrus. I mean, that can severely impact supply, demand, and things like that. And it becomes more intricate when you so when they're booking ads out 2 months, a month and a half out on strawberries, right? So we have a price committed to in strawberries, and we've committed to we need X amount of trucks coming up from Florida or Mexico or whatever, because we're running this ad. It's the ads are at print and
yeah,
all that stuff
it's already
happens.
in motion.
Right, then the weather doesn't cooperate with you. What do you do? Right?
That's my
They come up,
question.
right, then they come up and say, well, you're not getting a full truck. So we have to outsource to other suppliers.
Is that where you contact other vendors and try to supplement?
Yep, yeah, there's a lot of like produce it happens with, and produce we're lucky in that regard because there's probably 4 or 5 different major produce players that are here that we can go through that source product. So
So like if one of them doesn't have what you're looking for, you can just go to the other one
yeah,
type
or if
thing.
the quality's not good, we can source through a couple of our other vendors and say, hey, how's this looking? How's your strawberries looking? We need strawberries. We're gonna need this much for at least we can cover our Fox Brothers stores. 11 stores in a chain of Piggly Wigglies, that's around 100. So, but we're going to take, we can take that on ourselves and actually take control of that situation.
Are there any, in this switching over to demand, are there any specific customer buying habits that you have noticed specifically at this new store that has kind of surprised you or was something you had to adjust to and didn't expect to sell as well as it was selling?
Um, Not that I'm aware of, really, for the most part. I don't think there's anything that's really stood out to me. It's a busy store, so I mean, very ad driven. I can say that, like more than I realized, more promotional.
Like more people respond to the ads than you were expecting?
Yes, as far as their buying habits for shopping, yes, and they will go all over town and they will source the cheapest cost of goods, which I think everybody wants to do to a certain extent. Sometimes logistically it doesn't warrant it, but the proximity of the competitors here is very close. So, yes. So I guess what becomes a necessity then is when you're advertising an item, make sure you have it. I mean, so
And to tie kind of those together as well, how do your competitors affect what your prices and your supplies and what customer demand is? Like, how does that affect you? Do you do research on what your competitors are pricing at? Do you do like price matching? What does that look like for
there's
you?
some key items we look at that we do go into our competitors. Our main competitor, well, there's multiple here. So usually if I have to do, we call them store checks. So we're checking things like the price of milk, price of bread, things like that. So it's not a huge list, but it's kind of staples because we want to know kind of what they're at, and then we look at our pricing and some of that stuff we will adjust.
Hmm.
So
Is that done at a corporate level or is that normally done at like
milk.
a store and regional
So
level?
we've been following the pricing for a while, but we will adjust if we see that we're out of line with our main competitor.
Hmm.
So we will adjust, and I'm not saying we'll match them because we have to look at cost of goods. We don't know what they're getting their cost of goods at. So, but we will adjust. Milk is generally one of the ones that we will adjust on
Wow,
if I want to be relevant with.
it makes sense.
Yep.
Which product specifically have you noticed is like I guess the best term for this would be elastic, where like if prices fall, customers buy a lot of it. If the prices rise, the customer very rarely buys like any of it. Is
Meat.
there like a very oh, do you
Meat.
mind expounding on
It's
that?
that's just the meat market right now where it's at. I think the country's at an all-time low for head of cattle. So the price of feed being so high and inflation and all that stuff factors in. And I don't think the cattle ranchers, they don't see the return on investment. So why would they invest in raising more head of cattle?
It,
So until that changes, yeah, the price of when you're talking 32.99 for a piece of prime meat, I mean it's up there, you know. So how do you combat that? You cut smaller pieces. Maybe you cut a little thinner cuts on your T-bones to offer different varieties of price points for customers. Some like their thick cuts. Everybody likes their steak a certain way.
Mhm.
So, you just maybe you offer some thinner cuts, which keeps the weight down on the piece of meat, keeps the price down. So, but yeah, meat's at a all-time high. So when the price of ground beef, we just had a sale at 3.99. It's magic. I mean, it is, you sell a ton of ground beef. So
Interesting.
yep. So that one will because and it's a staple, so it does. But probably more so than anything else, it's been the price of beef.
And from just like a personal experience, what's like the most surprising customer demand that you have seen in your time here?
Customer demand, surprising. I don't know if I've seen anything that's surprising, to tell you the truth. I don't think any one thing that stuck out more than anything else that caught my attention to it, I guess, that I could say,
Okay,
honestly.
fair enough. I appreciate your honesty. And when you're trying to balance customer expectations with just sometimes how fragile the supply chain can be, or just sometimes like a truck just can't get here and now the customer doesn't have the item they're looking for. How do you normally balance that? Do you guys do like rain checks or
Yeah, we'll do rain check on anything we're out of. We'll take care of a consumer that way. The last thing I ever want to do is let somebody down. I mean, they came here looking for to shop here, and um, yeah, if we don't have what they're looking for, um, we'll rain check it. We want to make sure they get that item, or if it's depends on how they feel about it too. If they're not happy about a rain check and waiting, if there's something I can sub out, we'll sub it out for them.
okay?
So the bottom line is get them something. I think at the end, I'm gonna backtrack a second. So an item that astounded me that the movement, Mr. Boston vodka. There's one item that kind of shocked me how much we actually sell of that. It's the lowest tier, cheapest affordable vodka. So I don't know if that's why, but it is what it is. So that one we sell a bunch of it. I couldn't believe the numbers when I saw.
Is that do you can you imagine any of the factors that you could attribute to that?
I think so one thing you notice is that as the economy seems to, if it stagnates, it's not doing well, or inflation is high and the cost of goods are going up, people graduate to the bottom tier, and that's the bottom tier.
A
But
supplement good?
yes, that's what
Interesting.
it is. It's just at that point, with the other brands we sell, like Skoal or something like that. I mean, they're all kind of in the same genre, right?
Hmm.
That one happens to be the cheapest one.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate all of your insights, and I just wanted to thank you again for your time.
Right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.